What are your stories? Have you ever asked yourself this question? We all have them. Stories drive our actions at the deepest level. And until we surface them and see these stories, they will drive our behavior unconsciously and beneath awareness. But once they are surfaced and we can understand and see these stories, the stories have the opportunity to transform. And when the stories have been transformed, we can transform. And from this place, change becomes easy. So understanding our stories is really important. The stories are often rooted in one of five obstacles that we experience as human beings. And so today I want to talk to you about one of those common obstacles, the stories that they often generate, the ways that they keep us stuck, and how we can navigate a way out. Today, we're going to talk about the tendency to cling to worldly pleasure. This is the tendency to cling to and seek out things that feel good, things that we delight in, and to avoid pain or unpleasant experiences. Now, this is not about seeking out pain, right? Life will just bring pain. We don't have to seek it out. But it's about noticing the tight grip that we have on pleasure, because within that tight grip is the story that is keeping us stuck. And from here, as we understand and surface this story, we can better navigate the fullness of life in our full power and with our full capacity. That's the importance of understanding our stories. So let's dive in. So what does it mean to cling to pleasure? This looks like gaining material objects and preventing their loss, right? So these are the things that drive us to that bigger and better house, to the nicer car, right? To the things that we want to buy and purchase and have. It might look like having pleasurable experiences and avoiding pain. So avoiding those experiences that are uncomfortable or painful and seeking out the ones that are comfortable and easy to navigate. It's about achieving fame and power and influence and avoiding infamy or helplessness, right? So these are the things that might drive us to seek out certain professions or certain social status. It's about obtaining love and admiration and avoiding hatred or pain, right? So this is about fitting in and the way that we look and the way that we talk and the things that we do so that we are accepted by the people around us, right? As you think about all of these drives, all of these desires, none of them are inherently bad, right? This is not about avoiding any of these things. And it's noticing that all of these came from a good and important source, right? All of these drives helped us to survive. They helped us to find our place in our community. They helped us to accumulate the things that we needed to meet our needs. They helped us to build relationships so that we could be in a relationship with one another and ultimately have a family and reproduce and all the important things important to our survival, right? These are survival skills in a sense. So it's not about avoiding them or labeling as bad, but beginning to notice the energy that they hold for us or the energy that we hold around these things, right? Noticing the relationship that we have to these desires and noticing specifically, are we holding them with a tightness? Are we clinging? Are we pushing away from the unpleasantness? Or can we navigate through them? Can we receive them and let them go, right? Those are the things we're starting to notice and pay attention to. Okay, so we know that this desire is important to our survival, but when does it become problematic? And what is the story that we tell ourselves when we're in this place of clinginess, right? And of seeking out pleasure, right? This is where we hear the story or the narrative of at some level of I need or I want, fill in the blank with any sort of possession or status or outcome so that I can be happy, right? It's connecting our happiness and well-being to achieving things, to a certain status, or to a particular outcome. That's the story, right, that we can begin to watch for. How is this problematic for us? First of all, it leads to a desire for overconsumption, right? Because we're seeking out those pleasurable things, which are not inherently bad, but when overconsumed, lead to health problems, right? So we see that a lot in the wellness space. We see that all the time, right? That just desire for the pleasure of eating highly palatable foods, right? So we're always in that state of pleasure and receiving that hit of dopamine, but then it leads to a place where we've now overconsumed and it's affecting our health, right? So that's one way it can affect us. It can lead to a lack of tolerance for discomfort. And discomfort is an important part of life, right? Because when we experience discomfort, that is when we're growing. That is when we're stretching. That is when we're on our path to our best self, right? You think about exercise, right? Exercise is not comfortable, but as we exercise physically, we become stronger and it helps us to be healthy, right? Learning is not comfortable, right? It can be hard, it can be challenging to face things that you're not good at. But in that process of learning, you grow new skills that open up new opportunities, right? So that tolerance for discomfort is really important. It's also very closely tied to some of the best experiences in life, right? The good and the bad come together. So to get the full depth of the beauty and goodness of life, we need some tolerance for the unpleasant, right? And just a simple example of this, we were recently traveling, my family and we went snorkeling. And the ocean water is salty and it doesn't taste good and it doesn't feel good when it gets in your eyes, right? And it's not very pleasant. And so my young children, when they experience that unpleasantness, they want to avoid the ocean. But avoiding the ocean, avoiding the salts, means also avoiding the wonder and beauty of snorkeling with the fish and all of the beautiful things that we saw when we were in the ocean, right? The eels and the stingray and all of the beautiful creations that we were able to experience and be a part of, right? So tolerating discomfort is part of experiencing the beauty as well. When we seek pleasure, we also notice there's kind of an energy of control around the resistance, right? If you think about the desire to push away from or to prevent certain things from happening, right? And the more we try to control things, the more stress and frustration we have in our lives, because the reality is there's very little that we can control outside of our own behavior and our own response. The rest is really out of our control. But this desire, this clinginess, right, holds this energy of control, which then leads to increased stress and frustration, right? So these are some of the challenges that this clinginess can lead to. These are some of the stories, right, that create pain and suffering for us in our lives. Okay, so then where do we start to navigate a way out? The first step always is to increase our awareness, right? Begin to notice and recognize the times when this narrative, this story is showing up in your life. Some of the things that you can start to listen for are things like I need or I want, fill in the blank, to be happy, right? I need or I want certain outcome, things, or experiences to be happy, right? So noticing that. You might also hear it appear or see it appear in the shoulds, right? It should be this way or it should be that way, right? Because if it were that way, then it would be easier for me. It would be less painful, or I could navigate this, or this would happen, right? Noticing the shoulds. Also noticing the frustration. It can appear, surface in frustrations that we have with other people, right? Because we believe that they are the thing that is creating us pain. And if they could just stop, then our lives would be better, right? So noticing the frustration. And then finally noticing where you hold a lot of or desire for control over a situation, an outcome, or another person, right? Noticing those places, and we all have them, where we hold tightly to control. Just bringing awareness to those things, right? I need, I want, this should, or that person should, or I'm frustrated with that person, or I want to control the outcome. Those are all signals, right? That this obstacle might be surfacing. We might be clinging to some source of worldly pleasure and resisting or avoiding discomfort or pain, right? So noticing that story. And then what do we do? What do we do when we notice it? Here's the shift. We're shifting from that clinginess to loving kindness, generosity, and shared joy. Those are such powerful energies, really powerful antidotes, right, to that need or desire to cling to worldly pleasure. Loving kindness, generosity, and shared joy, right? This is fundamentally a shift from protecting myself from pain to connecting with people around me and creating a beautiful experience for all, right? That's what this is about. So first of all, feelings of loving kindness. That's about compassion and goodwill, right? It's a desire for the well-being of others and an investment in that outcome, right? Loving kindness. Generosity. This is a willingness to share our resources without any expectation of anything in return. This is simply rooted in a desire to help make a positive impact. Generosity. And then finally, shared joy, rejoicing in the joy of others. This is acknowledging that as we share joy, it magnifies, it multiplies. As we share suffering, it actually diminishes, right? The suffering diminishes as it's shared. The joy is magnified as it's shared. We're connecting with others. Again, this is a shift from accumulation and protection to connection. That's the conscious shift, the new story that you're beginning to build in your narrative that you're using to drive your choices and your behaviors. So why do we want to make this shift? What will happen in our lives if we make this shift, right? From that clinging to pleasure to the open-hearted desire for joy, loving kindness, and generosity. What's the shift? First of all, you will have greater equanimity. Equanimity, what does that mean? That is an evenness or steadiness of mind in the face of stress. And if there's one thing that I have heard that most people desire, it's to navigate stress better, right? Because what most of us do in stress, that's a big source, right? If we go and we eat, it becomes this big source of overeating and frustration and obstacle in our health goals, right? We want to navigate stress better. So as we make this shift, guess what? You will navigate stress better. Don't we all want that? The second thing is we'll experience a freedom from cravings, right? Because that craving comes from that desire for that thing, that desire for that pleasure, because the belief that that is what will lead for happiness. So we'll see a decrease in our craving for pleasure to being more filled with love and an openness to more possibility, right? An ability to receive life, the fullness of life, to snorkel in the ocean and experience the saltiness so that we can have the experience, right, of being in this place of wonder, right? It opens us up to more possibility and we're filled again with love, right? Because we're focusing on the generosity, the loving kindness, we're focusing on connection. Don't we all want to experience less cravings? Again, wouldn't that transform your health goals? It would transform mine for sure. And then finally, we see a shift from a desire for pleasure to being more fully present for the positive experiences in our lives, right? The positive experiences of every kind. Because again, the very best of life comes with the very deepest challenge, right? They come together. And so being able to receive them and navigate both opens us up to the fullness and the best of life. Oh, doesn't that sound beautiful? Okay, so what we are doing fundamentally is understanding and surfacing our stories so that we can better understand the drivers to our behavior. And as we understand those drivers, we can change them so that we can change, right? So that we can change and become the person that we're seeking to be. That's the power of this process of surfacing our stories. So today we talked about understanding where and identifying where we cling to pleasure and releasing some of that energy and replacing it, right, with the energy of loving kindness, of generosity, and of connection with others. That's the journey. That's the path. Now, saying all of this sounds easy, right? But the truth is it's hard. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes some skill. It takes support. So be kind and gentle with yourself as you embark on this process. If you're looking for support, if you'd like support from me as a coach, you can go to nourishwhoyouare.com. You can sign up for one free coaching session just to see what it would feel like and be like and what it all looks like. And we'll go through a coaching session together. And if you're interested in more support, I can share with you what that would look like. So you can go to nourishwhoyouare.com and sign up for a free coaching session. Also, don't forget to click subscribe. Over the next few weeks, I'll be sharing more videos on other common obstacles that we face that, again, drive our behaviors that, as we understand, we can drive our change as well. So stay tuned. Don't forget to click subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.